What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode of Bleeded BnG, episode 134. But before I get too deep into this episode, you already know what I'm going to say. Be sure to comment, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe. On the road to 2,000 subscribers, and I can't do it without you guys. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's get into this video to give you a timestamp as I do for all of my episodes. Today is about 7:45 on Sunday, September the 15th, and the Washington Commanders are about 3 hours removed from getting their first victory of the season against the pitiful little men from New York. We don't even want to call them the Giants because they might be the worst team in the NFL. And to be quite honest, if that wasn't the case, I don't know if Washington gets the win today. But they do, and I'm not here to be a Debbie Downer, so it's all positive vibes on this Victory Sunday, transitioning into a Victory Monday, and I'm looking to have a great week. Because my last week was funky. It started off with a Washington blowout, and my week was horrible last week. My week was so ass, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we got pulverized in Tampa Bay. So I'm looking for greener pastures. I'm looking for greater fortunes this week following a Washington win. And let's get into this game. So the game started off with my man Austin Eckler. I told y'all he had the juice. I told you Austin Eckler had the juice back. I told you. He returned a kick to the house. It was about 100 yards. So, before I get too deep into this video, let me tell you, Season 4 as a season ticket holder, so I was there boots on the ground. So I haven't had a chance to watch the TV copy. I haven't had a chance to review film. So all of this is going off straight memory, some things that, some quotes and things that I saw on Twitter after the game. But yeah, your boy is boots on the ground for year 4. This is year 4 of my season ticket holder experience. So the home opener, it was lit in FedEx. It took a while to get there, and I'm not even gonna lie. It was lit in Northwest Stadium. Let me get it right. Let's get the old bad juju out of FedEx Field and the namesake. Let's get that so far removed from all the good things that we have going on this year. But it was lit in Northwest Stadium. It took a while to fill up, if I must say so myself, and there were a ton of Giants fans. But hey, lit is lit. Packed is packed. I know it was announced on Thursday that it was sold out, and it got to being just about there towards the end of the game. But it started off with my man Austin Eckler taking the lead off of Northwest Stadium, returning the kick about 100 yards, all for it to get called back. And at that point in the game, I'm like, bruh, it's always some funny shit happening with the officiating when we play the New York Giants. Like, we know that the Murrays practically run the NFL along with Jerry Jones, and that's why we're screwed from the jump. We're screwed from the jump at the beginning of the season because we're going against two owners that practically run the NFL, right? Along with like Robert Kraft, and it's always some funny shit going on with the officiating in our games against the New York Giants. It always is. And I can't remember the time that it's really worked out in Washington's favor other than the 2021 Thursday night game when DeMarcus Lawrence was offsides. But guess what? He was fucking offsides. Like, about time the refs worked in our favor. Like, it's been like that for my 29 years as a Washington Commander, Redskin football team fan. We're notoriously known to get screwed by the refs when we're playing the New York Giants. But we were able to overcome that today. If I didn't mention, we did win the game 21-18 in a game where we didn't score any touchdowns. But I'm going to get into that later. But yeah, it started off with Austin Eckler getting that kick called back. And after further review, it was a ticky-tack blocking the back call, especially following the blocking the back call that we got against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers early in that game to basically kill all the momentum that we had established on the offensive side of the ball in that game. I really think that the game might have been turned differently last week if that call doesn't get reversed. We got the first down, but it resulted in us not moving the sticks after the penalty and things of that nature. So, yeah. So, once we did get the ball after the Austin Eckler return, the execution was okay. We had 4 first downs and took off 10 minutes of the clock. But once we got into the red zone, the execution bogged down. We had penalties, which seemed to be a theme of the day. Red zone woes and penalties seem to be the theme of the day. if I'm going to be 100% honest with you. And that's the reason why we didn't blow out the New York Giants, who should be relegated to the UFL at this point. That's the sole reason why this game was close. Or the two reasons that this game was close. Because to be quite honest, Washington has the better roster 1 through 53, and I'm glad that we were able to show that, throughout the duration of the game, because it wasn't looking like that at a point. It wasn't looking like that at a point. We trailed at halftime, and things was getting sticky. Malik Neighbors was running all wild on us, and thank God that I started him on my fantasy team, because any wide receiver that goes against the Washington secondary just automatically turns into Jerry Rice, right? So I'm letting you know now, if you play fantasy football for the rest of the season, if you got a receiver and he's going against the Washington secondary, you'll be a fool not to start him. Jamar Chase might go for 45 fantasy points next week. He might pull his best Alvin Kamara. But that's enough of that. That's enough of the negative vibes, because it's a victory Monday, it's a victory Sunday. So let's get into this game. We're going to start with our boy, the main attraction, the franchise quarterback, Jalen Daniels. He went 23 for 29, only 6 incompletions for 226 passing yards with no passing touchdowns, but he also had 10 rushes for 44 yards. So he had 6 less carries than he actually had in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, and I'm going to tell you why right now. Because that shot that he took in the second quarter that knocked him out the game for a play and knocked the wind out of him, that tackle essentially turned him into a fucking pocket passer. And it was beautiful to see. I am not saying that as a knock by any means, because we know the legs are going to be there. But once he took that hit, it had to come out the game. He was like, oh, these dudes in the NFL, they hit a little bit. Like, they hit a little bit. Like, I get it now. I get why they're telling me to slide. I get why it's a topic amongst Washington Commanders Twitter, because I need to get down. Not only is this fan base scored by the likes of RG3 and seeing a guy that was a flash in the pan as a rookie not fulfill out, his future prospects during his career. That you can add that. That's an add-on. That's an add-on. Who wants to see their franchise quarterback go down in the second game of his career, in the second game of his rookie season? No matter if we were scored by RG3 or not, you just simply don't want to see that. And when I say that hit turned Jalen Daniels into a pocket passer, this is what I mean. In the second half, Jalen Daniels had 8 throws that went 10 yards down the line of scrimmage. Or 10 yards. He had 8 throws that had at least 10 yards of air yards, or a throw that was 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. Excuse me, that was a tongue twister getting out. Excuse me, it's been a long day. When you boots on the ground in Northwest, I'm high off tequila right now. I'm sorry, excuse me. But he had 8 throws that went 10 yards down the field in the second half, completing 6 of them for 107 yards. When only having 3 in the first half, and I think he only completed one of those in the first half for about 36 yards. And he only had 6 completions in the game. So the accuracy was there, and he started to throw the ball downfield. I know Cliff Kingsbury. I know he loves that horizontal shit. And let me tell you, guess what? The horizontal shit was working in between the 20s. And I'm not going to hold Cliff Kingsbury to the fire too much this week, because it's hard to have 3rd and 14 from the fucking 14 when you got to score. 3rd and goal from the 14. It's hard. It's hard. And we had so many of those penalties today. It was almost like the linemen and Benson now were sabotaging us once we got into the red zone. And we had so many false start penalties once we got there. It was almost like we played perfect football on the offensive side of the ball until we got to the red zone. It was like, all right, somebody was like, all right, I'm gonna fuck shit up this time. I know you fucked the last drive up, I'm gonna fuck this one up this time. It was just like they were hot potato with fucking the drives up, killing the drive. So I'm not going to hold Cliff Kingsbury. I know that we didn't, have any touchdowns, but 21 points is 21 points. And I know that's not enough to win a lot of games in the NFL, but it was enough to win the day when you're going against the sorry-ass Giants. And I know it was 7 field goals, but if we looked at it, it was 3 touchdowns. We might have looked at it a little bit differently, but we got the dub today. Now, I will say, Cliff, some of that horizontal shit is not going to work in the red zone. Those screen passes, scrap that. Save that for where you got a lot of field to go. Because they sitting on those routes from the 20 to the goal line. They're sitting on them. I would love to see the success of those swing passes, those bubbles that we threw in the red zone, because they weren't highly successful from straight memory, because we were boots on the ground. Remember, we are boots on the ground. Real deal fan over here. But yeah, Jaden Daniels stepped up, man. Had his first career game-winning drive. Had his first career win. And I think he held up his end of, the bargain on the Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors showdown, because Malik Neighbors balled as well. He's a fucking stud. And he showed every which way why he was a stud. And we're going to get into that when we get into this defense as well. But sticking with the offensive side of the ball, Brian Robinson had a career game. He had 133 yards with no touchdowns. And I think that the biggest reason that he didn't have a touchdown is because he's still slow as hell. He still runs like he has a goddamn refrigerator on his back. But the dude is tough as nails. He doesn't go down after the first contact. And I love him as an NFL running back. I think that long speed is overrated in the NFL at the running back position, but it is nice to have. Because guess what? When you don't have it, you got a stat line that looks like Brian Robinson. 133 yards with no touchdowns. Because when you're not relying on those goal line, vulture-type touchdowns from the 3 yards and in, because Brian Robinson is effective in that, because he's going to run through a motherfucker's face. Y'all saw he had that big, I'm not sure how long it was, but it was about a 40 or 50-yard run today when it looked like he was about to run away from the Giants DBs. But that safety just came with tracking him down. So I love what Brian Robinson possesses. And don't think that I'm saying that he had a bad game by any means, because you can't have a bad game when you're rushing for 133 yards. But I do think that he does leave some yards out on the field at times. But I also think that in other instances, he gets some yards that may not have been there by simply just running through a motherfucker's face. So you gotta reap what you sow, right? And give what you can get. But Austin Eckler had a hell of a game as well. 85 all-purpose yards. He had about 40 yards rushing with a little over 40 yards receiving. We got him involved in the passing game. I would like to see him be used more in the passing game, to be quite honest. Get him a couple of more targets, because I think he's the most dynamic player that we have with the ball in our hands. And if these wide receivers continue to not do jack shit, why wouldn't you give Austin Eckler the ball? Because, like I said, I think he has the most juice with the ball in his hands of anybody on this roster. And as I mentioned before, those 85 all-purpose yards could have been 185 all-purpose yards if that kick doesn't get called back. So I love what I saw from Austin Eckler today. He looked like fucking Mighty Mouse on that fucking hurdle, just bouncing off a dude, landing on his feet and injuring him. Like stud, menace. What the hell was he thinking? Because it almost reminded me of AB against the punter. Because he knew damn well he wasn't hurting over that guy. It looked like he was just trying to get his shit off. And I loved it. Knocked the New York Giants out the game. We don't celebrate injuries, but hey man, all is fair in love and war. So yeah, he knocked the starting DB out of the game. Now I don't think that we ever got a chance to really expose that, but he showed what he could do with the ball in his hands, and that's all that I could ask for Austin Eckler. The wide receivers, man. It's a positive Sunday. It's going to be good vibes going on into the week. But when are we going to have an honest conversation about Terry McLaurin, bro? Like, I love Terry McLaurin as much as the next man. But Terry McLaurin had 6 receptions for 22 yards today. He had less than 4 yards a catch. This is our wide receiver 1. I stopped debating that Terry McLaurin was a top 15 wide receiver going into this season, because he wasn't it last year, and it looks like he might not be having that season this year. I love Terry McLaurin, and I still love Terry McLaurin, but he doesn't look like the same guy that we saw early in his career. He's not winning downfield. I went back and looked at the All-22 from the Buccaneers game, and he did win a couple of times, but we got to talk about Terry McLaurin like he's a wide receiver 1, or like he is the guy that y'all claim him up to be. Or that I was claiming him up to be prior to this season. And wide receiver 1's, top 15 wide receivers in the league, win more than just a couple of times. So yeah, he was open a couple of times in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. But wide receiver 2s around this league should get open a couple of times throughout an NFL game. I'm curious to see what the all-22 look like today because it clearly wasn't any separation when you get 6 receptions for 22 yards. I think his biggest game was on that slant play, but then you go right back. He runs a deep dig on the next play and doesn't really have much separation from Deonte Banks, who was in his ear all game. And while we did get the win, Terry McLaurin didn't really have much to say. And, man, I was looking for Terry McLaurin to bust Deonte Banks' ass. You know, he hit us with the 17 play today last year. And I knew that Terry McLaurin had just hung that shit up on his wall. I knew he was going to use it as bulletin board material. But you can't tell me that that was bulletin board material off of 6 receptions for 22 yards. As I mentioned last week, we can't keep talking about the offensive coordinators. First it was Scott Turner. Then it was Eric Bieniemy. And then now you're telling me it's Cliff Kingsbury. So are you telling me that Jay Gruden and Brian Callahan were the only motherfuckers that knew how to get Terry McLaurin the ball? Is that what you're telling me? Or was the only people that wanted to give Terry McLaurin the ball? Is that what you're telling me? So you let me know when you're ready to have an honest conversation about our captain, our guy, Washington legend. Terry's going to go down as a Washington legend. His name is going to be hung up in whatever the name of the new fucking stadium is going to be. I'm not denying that. But let me know when you're ready to have an honest conversation about Terry McLaurin in 2024. But sticking with the wide receivers, Noah Brown. Uncle Noah Brown. Looking like the best free agent signing, and he was brought in after final cuts, after he was released by the Houston Texans. Noah Brown looked like wide receiver 1 today if we being completely honest. 3 receptions for 56 yards and seemed to be the only receiver that looks like he can win downfield. Because the De'Ami Brown experiment, it might be over, dog. It might be over, dog. I know I was hyping him up. I had a lot of promise. But remember, we're the ones that originally coined the term De'Ami Brown just be out there running around. And it looks like he's doing a whole lot of just running around in 2024. Hey, but it's a lot of season left. It's a lot of season left. But Noah Brown had the big catch, and he looks athletic winning down the field. He had the big catch on the game-winning drive that essentially sealed the game. I think we got one more first down on a Jaden design run or a Jaden option after that. But, yeah, it looked like the only receiver that could win down the field. He looks explosive, and he's showing me some explosion that I didn't necessarily see from Terry McLaurin today. And I know Terry McLaurin is the guy that runs 4-3 and is supposed to be this vertical threat. But it looks like Noah Brown might be the guy to take over that role. And did Luke McCaffrey play today? Like, I was hearing remnants of him being the next. The fantasy gurus and Jim Nagy told me he was going to be the next Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua had like 300 yards by this point in the season. Luke got like 12 more yards than me. But sticking with the pass catching options, Zach Ertz was a fucking stud today, and I'm so mad that I benched him in fantasy for Pat Freiermuth. I don't know what I was doing. Zach Ertz played like it was 2016 today. 4 receptions for 62 yards straight, bullying a New York Giants DB, snatching that motherfucker out of his hands, bailing Jalen Daniels out for a throw that was a duck. One of Jalen's worst throws of the contest. But when you have a 6'5 motherfucker, no matter how old he is, he's going to have that catch radius that y'all told me Jahan Dotson has. No, Zach Ertz has that real deal catch radius to snatch balls, no diddy, out of DB's hands. And that's what he did today. I thought the offensive line held up. I know that Jaden Daniels had 5 sacks, but I think that a lot of those were on him, and a lot of those came before that hit. I think like 3 of those came before that hit where he got the wind knocked out of him because he was able to stand tall in the pocket throughout the second half. I know Brandon Coleman came out, but somebody told me that he was in on the game-winning field goal. I thought that the offensive line did okay, adequate. Sticking with the defense and the special teams, Austin Seibert, you're a bad motherfucker. Game ball goes to Austin Seibert. Washington franchise record, 7 career makes in his debut. This is a guy that we brought in on Monday. I don't know who the fuck left. I don't know how he was available in August. I don't know how the fuck we allowed ourselves to bring in K. York over this guy, but thank God that we were able to right our wrongs. Thank God that we were able to right our wrongs because I'm going to tell you right now, K. York would have pissed down his legs today. Who was the other one that we brought in? Ahmed Ramiz, whatever the fuck he would have pissed down his leg today. But Austin Seaver scored all of our points today. For a guy that was bought in, 6 days ago? He showed some big cojones. He showed some giant cojones. And that's going to be the title of this episode, Giant Cojones. Because that's what Jaden Daniels showed on his game-winning drive. That's what Austin Seaver showed throughout the fucking game. And that's what Benjamin St. Juste showed in the fucking second half. I know I was hard on Benjamin St. Juste, the GQ model. I know I was hard on La Vogue last week. Because La Vogue was getting his ass torched last week. And it looked like it might have been the same early in this first half when Malik Neighbors was running wild. And I know a lot of that had to do with Mike Davis. Because Mike Davis was really looking like Josh Norman out there. He had the 24 like Josh Norman, and he was looking like Josh Norman, not being able to run with receivers. Looking slow as hell. Slow as dirt. Like, we saw why now we understand. Now do y'all understand why Mike Davis got 0 snaps last week? He out there running like he got prosthetic legs. Malik Neighbors just steadily running away from him on drag routes, making Malik Neighbors look like prime Odell. But Benjamin St. Juste stepped up. He took the challenge. He forced the fumble on Devin Singletary, which was ultimately, in my opinion, the difference in the game because we didn't have any punts. So I won't be talking about Tressway today. And we didn't have any turnovers. And honestly, you're going to be in, and I'm not going to say you're going to win all those games, but you're going to be in a lot of games when you don't have any punts and you don't have any turnovers. Because I honestly think that the Giants fumble was the difference in the game because that took a possession away from the Giants. And it was a possession that they were about to score on, if we're being 100% honest, when they were marching down the field to open up the second half. Benjamin St. Juste stepped up, stripped the ball. Not necessarily his job. He gets paid to cover. And Jeremy Chin came up with a big, fumble recovery. Speaking of Jeremy Chin, though, but hey, Benjamin St. Juste ball. But speaking of Jeremy Chin, and this goes along the lines of the entire defense. The tackling is still fucking horrid. The tackling is still fucking putrid. Jeremy Chin had Daniel Jones in the open field and fell to his fucking knees like a Life Alert commercial. I know we don't have starters playing in the preseason, and I know it's September, and that's what September is for, but that shit ain't even high school football level. We may need to lace up the pad. I don't know what the CBA allows, but we need to run some fucking Oklahomas this week. Because we're going against an 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals that's going to be pissed off. And old Janky Rondo already told Jamar Chase that Benjamin St. Juste was going to be clamping him. So I already expect him to go for 279 yards. So we got to buckle our chimp straps like Jaden Daniels did today. Because that helmet didn't fall off not once. Even when he got taken out of the game. But the tackling's got to be better. Bobby Wagner, while I think he made some decent plays in the box, he still looks slow. Frankie Louvu looks fast. He made a couple of tackles, just running sideline to sideline in the box. I do think that he overruns a couple of his assignments, especially in the run game. I do think he can run himself out of a couple of plays. But outside of making Malik Neighbors look like prime Jerry Rice, I think that the secondary did okay. We didn't get necessarily beat deep. And I know it was Daniel Jones, and we made Daniel Jones look better than Daniel Jones actually is. But what can you expect with this defense? We got one of the worst defenses in the NFL. We have no pass rushers. Cleveland Farrell and Dorrance Armstrong provide about the same amount of pressure as me. John Allen, Deron Payne, they're marginal at best at this point. They don't really change any games. They're not playing like they are paid to play. And I think that's one of the biggest themes from this game as well, is that like your three highest paid players in Deron Payne, John Allen, and Terry McLaurin produced jack shit today. Produced not Nathan today. And you were still able to get the win. How often are you going to say that? And is that the case because simply it's the Giants, and the Giants are probably going to have the number 1 overall pick this year? So while I know that they have our number, doesn't it feel good to not be the dormant and the laughingstock of the NFC East? Doesn't it feel good to not be in the cellar dweller of the NFC East, and to be able to look down at somebody and laugh? especially with the Dallas Cowboys getting their ass dusted by the New Orleans Saints. Shout out to Alvin Kamara. We about to see what the Eagles do tomorrow. But we might be tied at the top of the division going into next week. But I think that'll do it. I don't think I have any much more. I think I went over Mike Davis looking like prime Josh Norman. Looking like he's 46 years old running with receivers. And Mikey Sainristil. What happened to the Mikey Sainristil that y'all made sound like prime Antoine Winfield in training camp? That y'all made sound like prime Rondé Barber in training camp? That y'all made sound like prime Kenny Moore II in training camp? Because he got his ass flame broiled on the out route that led to the touchdown to Wandale Robinson. And I'll be curious to see the official snap count, because it didn't seem like he was out there as much as he was last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I saw a couple of sets where we were running 3 safety sets where Quan Martin, Jeremy Chin, and Percy Butler were on the field. So I don't know if Dan Quinn is losing faith in a guy like, and Joe Witt are losing faith in a guy like Mikey, but it just seemed to me, being boots on the ground, that he didn't play as much, and when he did, he got his ass cooked for a touchdown. So maybe that's why we saw some 3 safety sets. And Joe Witt Jr., like I said, I'm not going to hold, same thing with Cliff Kingsbury, I'm not going to hold him to the fire too much. But why are we still playing man when we can't, when the only thing that the New York Giants had going was a Malik Neighbors drag route? Why are we still playing man coverage when we know we got receivers we got cornerbacks that can't run with me out that motherfucker? I'm going to need you to tighten that up before we go up to Cincinnati and face Jamar. I'm going to need you to go ahead and tighten that up. And I think that T. Higgins might be coming back as well. So that'll do it for this episode. Great vibes. Victory Monday. Have a good week. We coming with the content this week. I'm going to do a Bengals preview. We coming with the reaction video to this game tomorrow. So make sure that you're on the lookout on the channel for that. And yeah, Washington wins. So yeah, it's positive vibes on the channel all week. As always, if you're not following us on social media, go ahead and do that. Our Instagram is @BleedingBnG, BleedingBnG. Our Twitter or our X handle is @BleedingBnG, BleedingBnG. So there's only one G in our X handle. If you're listening to us on audio-only platforms such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a rating, please leave a review. That's the only way that we can guarantee that when you're searching anything Washington Commanders, you finessing that algorithm so that we're the #1 content hub that pops up in your search bar, so you're getting that raw, uncut, and unfiltered analysis on your Washington Commanders. Good Monday, good week, and I'll check in on you guys later. Peace.